welcome to the In a Nutshell podcast with myself, Andrew Miles Davis, and my co-host, Chris Branch. The 10-minute daily podcast where we take out all of the techie talk around generative AI and focus on what the everyday person, content creator, and marketer wants to hear. Now, we've only got 10 minutes, so we can only focus on one particular subject. And today we're going to talk about a subject based on a video that I saw and posted on LinkedIn. And that is a robot watched somebody make coffee and then managed to make coffee. And this is just now. So essentially what I am saying is a robot watched somebody do something and very quickly worked out how to do it. And this was just coffee. Your mind might be thinking, well, hold on a minute. What else can it do? And that's pretty much what we're going to be talking about today. So, Chris, what are your thoughts on this particular, this phenomenon that we've just seen?
It's incredible, isn't it? Like, to think how far AI has come, because when you watch documentaries about this stuff and the way they had to train Deep Blue and DeepMind and all of the chess things that they had to beat the chess champions with, this was what's called brute force learning, where it's just pack as much information in as you possibly can and then have like a sorting algorithm between all of the information in order to pick the right move based on hundreds and hundreds of data sets of this one worked best in this situation and that one worked best in this situation, etc., etc. Cut to today, we're like using reinforcement learning to make it use video as its input. So it's analyzing the world in real 3D, and then it's taking in all of that information and playing against itself in virtual space billions of times potentially over the course of a few weeks. This is how we discovered so many proteins recently, is that same thing happened. They just introduced a load of ways that proteins can fold to an AI, and then over the course of 3 weeks it did a billion different folds, and then it came out with the answer. And this was like 10,000 years of human work, of PhD work, in the course of 3 weeks.
So as we take out all the techie talk, what do you mean by protein? Because some people
this was just something in healthcare. So,
something like that.
Healthcare, they have this big issue with proteins, because proteins are very long pieces of information that curl on to each other and therefore cause really peculiar patterns that make them work in different ways. And one of the things that the stats that I read in this report, just to make people aware of how incredible this is it takes one PhD student their entire PhD to figure out one protein. So this is 7 years of a human life in order to figure out one protein. And that's supposed to be a success. And yet an AI can do billions of these things in the course of a few weeks. Because it's about scale of data and about replication and about reinforcement. And if you can create a simulated world where you just play against yourself and there's no recourse, you're not playing against humans to show how bad you are for the first billion times you played this thing, but now all of a sudden you come out and you look superhuman because you've tried every single possible thing that could go wrong in virtual space, and then when you apply it to the real world, it's perfect technique, but it looks like magic.
But the thing is, if you think about it, that's essentially what humans do. Obviously not to that level. Let's keep it sport, because it's just easy to do. A boxer, they will fight, let's say 2-3 times a year. This is like obviously top level, but they'll go away in their training camp, or in this case, their virtual world, practice. So when you see them, they're like, wow, look how fit they are. Look, they managed to do this. And then they'll go away for 3 months or 4 months or whatever in their virtual world or in their real world sparring, etc. It's the same thing, but obviously the AIs is a lot more efficient in this virtual world that they.
Well, I'll blow your mind a little bit, because I watched a really interesting podcast by a sleep specialist called Dr. Matthew someone. I forget his surname. But he said that when we sleep, we actually replay back memories 17 times faster than real time. So when a boxer is jabbing left hook, in real time, they're making 1 times the data stream. And in their sleep, they're making 17 times faster. like connections
Mm.
between neurons, because your brain essentially can create this virtual space in which it can practice over and over again the things that you did during the day and reinforce that learning. So in a way, it is very much like what the AI does, but we don't realize we're doing it. We're unconscious in our sleep, and it's not
Yeah.
even something we remember generally. And yet the next day, it's provable that that's happened.
So right now, there are people out there training AIs to do certain things. You know,
Yeah.
I'm sure this is what Iron Man 2 was based on. You know, when I've seen Iron Man 2, you kind of not Iron Man 1. No, Iron Man 2. Iron Man 2, and he brought the army of AI robots to
Yeah.
kind of take over. Um, for me, I look at that. Let's go back to the coffee example. You know, it looked at that, as I said, it went into its virtual memory, looked at how all different scenarios and created the perfect coffee. Now, this is just coffee. Another episode we spoke about was there was an AI restaurant somewhere in California
Mm-hmm.
where it was like the cooks were AI.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of it is to do with formulas, because when you
Mm-hmm.
make a coffee, you do X, Y, Z.
It's a recipe.
So it's a recipe. This is almost, I don't know if you've seen that, I think the film's called Founder, which had Michael Keaton in it. It was about McDonald's. And
No, I haven't.
it's a great film. You should definitely watch it. And it's basically, he played Ray Kroc, I think his name is, the guy who founded McDonald's. And essentially it was, wow, these guys, the McDonald's brothers, they've taken fast food and they've basically made a formula. So you could get any kid in there to do it, because all you need to do is this, and then you pass it on to this person. It's just factory. Like when you build a car, you do this, this, this. Essentially, what you're saying technically is what you're going to find is that a lot of these AI robots will focus on formulaic jobs. So anything like making coffee, anything like
Making a pizza.
anything. It's not just food stuff, but I mean, like, there's loads of different things, which is a formula. You do X, Y, Z, and then they can learn that quickly. Wow.
Yeah, it's a tough one, isn't it? Like, because when you think about that abstractly, that includes a large majority of the high street jobs. You know, any retail store, we've seen Amazon Go stores, which are completely like employeeless, and they just use cameras and stuff like that. Now, what I'm really interested in is, are we going to go down the specific toys that we've done in the past, i.e. we get a smart toaster, we get a smart this, a smart that, or are we going to get more like the Tesla bot, which can do loads of stuff, more like us, that they can do everything. They could do the plumbing, they could do, the tiling, they could paint the house, they could cook you breakfast. That seems to be a lot less space with one gadget that can do multi-purpose things, but that's a lot harder breakthrough than just a toaster that can make perfect toast, or whatever it is.
Also, it's not really scalable. So it is, but it's not. But like, for example, you'd have to have, if it was like a Starbucks, you'd have to have several robots working in a Starbucks for it to kind of work. Because if you look, it's not just one person working in Starbucks, there's a lot. Then it goes to the cost. So I think anyone's listening to this, don't think that we're speaking about this is going to happen this year. This is for me, this is still quite a way away, because there's going to be so many other factors, so many ethical reasons.
It'll be a gimmick in the beginning.
It will be gimmicky in the beginning, but it's inevitable stuff like this will happen. So one of the things that we really try and say to people is, how can you future-proof yourself?
Yeah.
And it's not a case of saying, all right, let's come up with stuff that makes me okay in the next few months. It's also trying to look forward a few years' time and see where this technology could potentially go. And a lot of what's going to affect us in 3-4 years' time is available now. It's just that at the infant stage, or it's only like the really early adopters that are using it.
Definitely, yeah. So in a nutshell with this, the interesting thing that you've discussed here is mechanical robots in real life. We're not talking about software anymore. We're talking about in-life things. So there's going to be lots of progress in that space, but it's not going to be quick, as you said. I think software will see a lot more inclusion. So if you're doing accountancy or anything like that, that's unfortunately going to be very quick.
Yeah.
But if you're doing anything in real life, like a plumbing job or a warehouse job or something, or a chef, then you may be having a few more years to think about this, but worth thinking about now for sure.
Definitely.